Serious, girls and women of Reddit, how old were you the first time someone made a sexually inappropriate comment to you? How did you react, and did it affect how you saw yourself or acted? I was 7 when some weird ass guy wanted me to show him the girls' changing room at the swimming pool. Luckily I had the common sense to go looking for my teacher. I was 11 when the normal harassment started with guys twice to thrice my age tried to hit me up and go out with me. The very first guy I remember trying to chat me up and the bus tried to convince me to tell him I was 18. When it finally sank in that I wasn't lying when I said I was 11. He had the graciousness to go completely white in his face and flee the bus at the next stop. I was 13 when a guy at the bus stop tried to convince me to go on a love weekend to Paris with him. He was easily 40. 13 or 14. Guy in his early 20s comes to me. Asks if I'm a virgin because he only dates virgins. Me being a shy timid person just stared at him and couldn't form any reply. Just froze on the spot. I was 5. Was standing on jungle gym on the playground and an older boy came up to me and grabbed my spandex and underwear and stretched out my underwear and looked at my privates. I did not know how to use my voice or stand up for myself. I climbed off the jungle gym and sat under it and cried. I remember feeling so embarrassed and violated. I never told anyone. Just remembered that and will probably talk to my therapist about it. I was 12. At a barbecue my parents were having. I was in a bathing suit because we had a pool. A friend of my dad said he'd like to leave his wife there and take me home instead. I didn't say anything because I was so ashamed. I put clothes on and stayed in my room the rest of the party, even though an adult overheard him and he was forced to leave. I was 12 years old. Walking to the store with my 2 friends to get a Slurpee. We walked past a group of grown men and noticed they were all staring at us. As we passed, one of the men exclaimed loudly to his friends, "I wanna come on the blonde one's tits." 12 years old. About 12. On my period. Looking and feeling like shit. Simply walking home from the shops. Was wearing jeans and an oversized t-shirt. This asshole and his late 20-something-year-old friends start hooting their car. And hanging out the windows while catcalling me. Ignore it. When they suddenly come around again and drive slowly past me and they keep saying how SI they think I am. I had a moment where I thought, oh god, this is how people end up getting kidnapped. There are 4 of them. And 1 of me. Even if I run I won't make it very far. I started walking faster. And eventually. I assume that they got bored. And sped off. I basically ran home. I have similar incidents but this was the one that came to mind first. I was 13. I was at a bus stop. I ate a banana. An asshole, 40-50 came up to me and said I looked good with this in my mouth. I was so disgusted that I said I think I'm going to throw up. This offended him and he went away. Semicolon. Edit. Thank you for your sympathy but remember I gave only 2 examples. If you wondering how I react today. 3-4 years ago I punched a guy who had grabbed my ass in the subway. By the way, I'm feel sorry for the women who had have similar experiences. My dad told me not to eat bananas like a King WH Ray when I was 11-12. I was very confused and didn't make the association with bananas looking like dicks until many years later. Edit. Which one of you sick FCKS gave this a wholesome award? I was 7. I had this beautiful dress that had a full circle skirt and I spun around in it because how can you not when you're 7 and you love your dress? My uncle's friend, M. 50s, was there and he told me to spin again because he could see my underwear. I remember just feeling so gross and afraid. I told my mom and she was livid. We left and I was never allowed near that man. I also couldn't wear that dress afterwards without thinking about how that incident made me feel. It definitely took a little bit of my innocence away. I was 9 or 10 and a neighbor kid, 7 or 8 M, grabbed my ass one day while I was out playing kickball with the other neighbor kids. I didn't know what to do so I just went inside. Didn't even finish my turn. Did what I could to avoid him until we ended up in school again. Looking back, hate how young this happened at on both our ends. About the same age. One of my dad's friends made a comment about my chest and how much I looked like a boy and how he couldn't wait to see what I looked like in a few years. Again. Just avoided him after that. On a much better note. I, 27F, recently have found myself managing a bar where it's all regulars. One of them, R, M30, told another regular, D, M60, that we were going to hook up and he asks, yeah. But does she know that? And got R to back off without me having to say anything to him. It's honestly some of the alliances that really make a female's life easier. 12. Just some random guy in a grocery store. He said something like, was I happy that my boobs were coming in? 7 or 8. My sister, 1 year older, and I had just gotten furry boots for Christmas and were wearing them out. 3 teenagers on bikes stopped us and started going off about how SI we were in those boots and wouldn't let us pass. I remember being confused and scared. My sister, who was blonde, always got the worst of it though. She was our pet at the age of 16 and was never the same since. That led to a downward spiral and eventually her death last year. A step cousin asked to see what color panties I was wearing. I was probably 6. I was a waitress at 15. A man I was serving said I should be in prison for the thoughts I've had about you. Never forgot that one. Edit. I have worked in restaurants since then and have enough stories to write a book. I'm 30 and I own the restaurant now. This tea does not fly with me. Speak to me like that again and I'm gonna be the one going to prison. I usually groan at edit. Thanks for the awards. Edits, but I feel obligated to at this point. Thank you all for the awards. I was 12 and was babysitting my younger brother, 11 years younger than me, and took him to the park and someone apparently assumed he was my son and told me to keep my legs shut next time. I had to ask a friend what it meant. It mostly just made me afraid of being a teen parent. And being publicly shamed. Edited to add. Whoa. This is clearly a common experience for so many people. Sorry to all of you who have also been victim to people's weird obsession with teen pregnancy and who feel their only possible course of action is to SLT shame children. 7. I insisted I have my own room and that I didn't want to share a bed with my mum. So she put me in a room with her scuba diving friend that was renting the room next to us. She obviously trusted him or something to put me in there. He would make comments about how I would grow up to have a nice body, a remark that I never understood because I was 7. I ended getting molested by that son of a BTCH and I never grasped what he had done until years later. Now I distance myself from older men. I grew up being wary of others. Edit. Forgot to add how this affected me. Edit 2. Spelling. How does your mom hear I want my own room and then decided that means to share it with a stranger? If this thread has taught me anything, it's that I as a parent need to pay close attention to how people interact with my daughter as she grows up. I feel like the listening to her and taking her seriously were a given. But I never considered having to watch how people watch her. So thank you OP. I was 15 walking downtown with my best friend and her mother and this older man, looked like he was in his 50s, walked past us. Then circled back around to pass me again while saying I'd love to use that ass as an ashtray. Put all my cigarettes out on that. I was shocked and scared. My best friend's mom jumped between me and him and cursed him out. I was wearing a dress that day. To this day, almost 20 years later, I'm not too comfortable wearing dresses in public. I couldn't tell you. It's like trying to identify the first snowflake in a blizzard. I was 12. And we were moving house. I was trying to get up in the mattress shelf in the van. And one of the moving men shouted he could see my panties. And that they were pretty. I threw them away. I imagine for many girls and women. I was 9 and a random guy decided to say how nice my legs looked on the shorts I was wearing. I didn't say anything. Just walked faster in order to get home. After that I immediately started hating wearing short skirt dresses, and up to this day, I'm 21, I still feel self-conscious and uncomfortable when showing my legs. I was 18 and working at a Wendy's over the summer. I've never experienced that much sexual interest from strangers. But somehow wearing that uniform made people treat me differently. I was bent over cleaning up a spilt salt shaker when I realized these boys about 13-14 were staring at my ass. Bold as brass. I looked at them and one of them just said, "You're good at your job," in this tea-eating tone. Also that summer I was taking my 13-year-old cousin and his friends to the water park, and one of them tried to hold me down and pull at my bikini top in the pool. Boys that age are the worst because they're old enough to think it's cool and funny but young enough to have no restraint. They start getting taller and stronger than you. But adults still think of them as kids and think it's funny that anyone would find them intimidating. I was like 12 walking home from school when some older guy whistled and said, "Hey babe." I just kept walking and thought nothing more of it, cause dude was probably just drunk or being a dick in front of his friends. Back in elementary school, some boys used to pick on me by trying to say one of their friends had a crush on me. Shortly followed by said boy bursting out with, "No way. She's so ugly." So I'm oblivious to most advances now because I never assumed they're serious. Still, I'm pretty lucky to have only been through that. Other girls have gone through much worse. When I was about 7, a neighbor had a friend over. A guy I didn't know. He asked me if I wanted to kiss a frog on the mouth or a rabbit between the ears. Of course I said rabbit between the ears, and he proceeds to pull the white pockets out of his jeans. Holds them up and out, pushes his hips forward and says, "Well, start kissing." I didn't exactly understand at the time what he meant, but I knew it wasn't appropriate. The first of many times in my life. I had forgotten about it until I was in a grocery store recently and this 50-60-year-old guy told a woman that her daughters are beautiful. The woman just said thank you and walked away. The kids were like 5 and 8. It really unduly bothered me, and when I was trying to figure out why, I remembered this and several other times I was young and older guys were inappropriate with me. It sucks. I'm sure literally every woman has a story. I was 12 years old when a grown-ass man told me that I looked nice and fertile. Being the innocent kid I was, I didn't know what he meant. But it gives me a pit in my stomach every time I think about it. This wasn't my first one, sadly. But it's the one that most affected me. I was 14 and went into the city for some shopping with my best friend. I was wearing my soccer Letterman jacket, which I was super proud of. We were walking by a homeless man and he said, "The one in the red has nice knockers." It seems like such a little thing, but I began slouching to hide my breasts because they made me feel dirty. When I got a bilateral mastectomy due to breast cancer a few years ago, I remembered this incident once again and got so mad that someone had made me feel ashamed of my body, causing me not to appreciate it for so long. I was just so unprepared for a grown person to say something like that to me. 6th grade, so 11 or 12. I developed early, and I was the new kid. A few of the guys in my class made a bunch of comments. I told them to stop. Reported it to the teacher. Got the boys will be boys response. After that, I didn't respond until one little douche decided to try to unhook my bra. Well, I'm a pretty easygoing person, but if you touch me, it's on. I grabbed that kid by his stupid little bangs and bashed his head into the wall until he got the message. I got sent to the vice principal's office, where I explained my situation. Repeated harassment progressing to physical assault. All ignored by the teacher. Boy got suspended. I got left alone. I think you dropped this. I was 6. And I didn't know what to do, so I let the much older boy rub my butt because I had no gauge to deal with it. IDK. Maybe 3 years old. That's when the sexual abuse started. I'm now 30. Finally working through it. Woohoo. I was affected a lot. Wet the bed till I was 13. I was oddly boy crazy. I thought creepiness was normal. Married a guy who drugged me to have sex with me. Was arped many times because I never learned how to protect myself. See the self-blame there? I have a lot of that too. I've hated my body. I've had severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, and thought I owed everyone my body. Happy news though. I'm now 30 with an amazing husband, 2 kids, and I've never been so happy. I feel f***ing normal-ish and it's incredible. I have tough days. Like today. Thinking about how my mom handed me over to my abuser, bio dad, and I crumble a bit, but my family is so awesome now that they pick me right back up. I was in 8th grade and I was wearing shorts cause it was hot out, and the boy that sat next to me and would touch my right shoulder and say, "Did you know that every arpe starts with a touch on the right shoulder?" Or he would say something like, "Your thighs are so thick it's giving me a boner," and I always brushed it off, and now I'm 17 and it took me forever to realize that I was sexually harassed. I was 9. We invited some neighbors over for Christmas, and one of them said I looked sexy in shorts and patted my ass. Then I asked my mom if I could put on a jean. I was 10. I developed ahead of all my cousins and friends. It was our annual family cookout for the 4th of July and all the kids were running around in our swimsuits when my uncle grabbed my arm to stop me, looked me over, and cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. He then said, "This one already looks like a woman. All the boys are going to fall in love with that body." This made 10-year-old me believe that men would love you no matter what as long as you had a good body. Spoiler alert. It didn't turn out well. I'm better now. But it has taken years. And I'm still not where I want to be. I was 6-ish when I was first sexually abused, raped, and it lasted for years by many different men, all of whom lived in my house. I was a terrified kid then, and now I have PTSD. I am not really an exception to the rule either. It happens a lot more than you think and right under our noses every day. Please be vigilant with your children and teach them that adults are not always right. First one. 16. At my first job at a pizza place. Early 90s. I was on my knees washing greasy little kid fingerprints off the glass door. My manager, a slimy looking guy in his 40s, stood next to me. And when I sat back in my heels to ask him what he wanted, he said, "So while you're down there," and adjusted the front of his pants. I very calmly collected my purse and left on the spot. Second one. Watching that horrible Vanilla Ice movie at a friend's house. Still 16. Guy in his 30s who was friends with the owners of the house stared at my chest the entire movie. I found myself alone with him for maybe a 2-minute snack break mid-movie and he said, "If you lost 5 pounds you could be a dancer in a titty bar." We grew up with this crap. We were told to just let it go. It's a compliment. You should be flattered. I'm so glad things have started to change. I wish I'd been encouraged to have a voice when I was a minor. Not really a comment. More of an action, but in 6th grade a friend, also 6th grade, tried to play red light green light or whatever on my leg and had me tell him to stop whenever his hand got too high up my thigh. In 7th grade, an 8th grader did like a light karate chop or slap to my nether regions. Totally uncalled for. It was really random and he said something like shoulder had a V8 or something. 8. I didn't understand the comment and just brushed it off. Shortly after, I was arped for 3 years by a family member. And throughout all of high school comments were made. Basically made sex a negative. I've done a lot to fix that but the damage is still there. Don't remember how old but it was before I was 13. Got catcalled walking to a friend's house. 13. Older teenager guy looked at me and said I'd FCK that as I walked by with my friends. Not sure how old, but a babysitter told me I was SY. Didn't seem inappropriate back then. But in this day and age? I was 9 years old and a car slowed down and the driver, maybe mid-20s, said to me, "Hey, little PSSY. I bet you give good head." I was 11. The other girls started commenting on my breasts and bottom in the locker room. snapping my bra straps, etc. It's not talked about a lot, but there is a certain and specific kind of sexual harassment and shaming between young girls. Specifically toward girls who are targeted for bullying by the entire peer group. I started changing in the toilet stalls to avoid the others. I joined a local theater company not long after. And got comfortable changing in front of people. Even boys. Because there was no other option and no one cared to look at anyone's body because everyone was in a rush to do costume changes. I still changed in that toilet stall at school. Though.